Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we explore convenient yet effective shortcuts that will help you get ahead and move forward faster by becoming a better leader. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Need a powerful and entertaining way to ignite your next conference, retreat, or team building session? My keynotes don't include magic, but they do have the power to help your attendees take a leap forward by putting emotional intelligence into their employee engagement, and customer-centric leadership practices. So bring the infotainment creativity of the Fast Leader Show to your next event, and I'll help your attendees get over the hump now. Go to beyondmorale.com/speaking to learn more. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because we have a rising star that helps others teach how to lead the younger generation, and he himself is one of them. Mark Nathan is on a mission to fit 3 lifetimes into one. The child of Burmese and Filipino immigrants, along with his brother who is a breakdancing Catholic priest and a younger sister who is a nurse and married to a Chicago firefighter, they all grew up with a great appreciation for the American dream. But Mark didn't quite know how to find the life he hoped for. At a young age, he had a creative streak with an ambition to tackle large projects and loved working with people. He assumed education and a good career was the path to his dream life, but after watching some job struggles in his family, he knew that that was not the path for him. Mark found a talent and love for acting, pursued a degree and career in theater and film, which is how he paid his way through college. He took the drive and discipline that he learned as an actor and launched a successful film festival at the age of 21. After college, he spent a few years in the corporate world as a recruiter, but also built a successful direct sales business in his free time, which allowed him to be financially free at 27 years old. Mark and his co-author, David Anderson, of The Delusion of Passion, Why Millennials Struggle to Find Success, teaches others how to effectively manage the millennial generation. Mark also continues to grow multiple entrepreneurial endeavors and looks forward to joining the film world as a director and producer soon. Mark is a proud Chicagoan and lives in the South Loop with his wife Meredith. They are expecting their first child in this fall. Mark, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
Let's rock and roll. Thanks for having me on, Jim.
I appreciate having you. Now, I've given our listeners a little bit about you, but can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Absolutely. I think you mentioned it right at the very beginning. You were talking about fitting 3 lifetimes into one, and that is absolutely something I am so passionate about and so jacked about. I grew up with this mentality that I don't even know if it's a generational thing or an immigrant thing, but I grew up with this idea that when you find the right job or career path, that's really supposed to be where you find your identity. And so I grew up with go to school, get a good education, get a good job, and kind of find the career path that allows you to be who you are. Okay, well, I'm good at math, so maybe I should do this, or I'm good at this. Maybe I should find this, go down this career path. And I kind of found myself in a spot where I just didn't want to be limited to one thing the rest of my life. I felt like I had a lot of things that I wanted to develop inside of me, the creative side and the business side and the growing leader and working with people. And so instead of trying to find my passion or discover my passion, I started creating a life I was passionate about. And that happens with every decision that you make, every action that you take. And so that's what I've been jacked about. I've been very excited about recently because we've seen a lot of people, especially with this book. This book just came out not too long ago. And The Delusion of Passion, Why Millennials Struggle to Find Success. There's so many people in our generation that have been dealing with the same thing. They're trying to find a life they're passionate about, like it's hiding behind the corner or something, or it's behind the next promotion. And really it's about creating a life that you're really excited about living. So that's what we've been focused on more recently, the book and sharing the love from some of that. And it's opened up a lot of really great doors and started a lot of really great conversations. So we're very blessed.
Okay, so I'm a Gen Xer, right?
Sure.
And my kids, are, 13, 11, 8. So, I don't get exposure to a lot of that millennial, type of, thinking, type of perspective and outlook. And I had the opportunity to watch you and David on a recorded webcast. And there was a couple of things that stood out to me. And when you just started talking about, your drive and desire and things like that, there's a really something that's missing from that whole helping people to understand their direction piece what motivates them, what their drivers are, because people of my generation and before me, we didn't have nowhere near as many choices as the younger generation has. Finding that passion and understand what motivates and drives you is hard.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we've seen when you're talking about how many options there are, it creates almost a little bit of this stagnancy, like, well, I'm not really jacked about what I'm doing right now. I'm sure I'll find something later. If you're smart and you're talented, you're willing to work at least a little bit hard, there's a world of possibilities out there. And so it almost creates a little bit of this stagnation where you're waiting for the next thing, or, well, I'm sure I'll find something better. I'm not going to really do something about this. Oh, I'm at a placeholder job right now, but I'm sure things will get better. And meanwhile, you have an opportunity to grow at the job you're at right now, or you've got this opportunity over here to potentially start something with a friend. And you almost pass up on these opportunities because you just assume that there's going to be something better. I'm sure, when I find the right path for me, maybe there's going to be fireworks, or maybe some magical thing will happen. I'll just know. But the reality of the situation is, we talk about it in the book, you just got to kill what's in front of you. Really, life is just about these chapters and these opportunities. And if you've got an amazing opportunity with your job or with working with a friend and launching something, whatever it is, do the best you can with what you've got and where you're at. Find a way to add value as much as humanly possible to your current situation. And what you're going to learn from that, and the people you're going to meet, the skills you're going to develop, that's going to unlock doors for the next opportunity, right? And then that's going to unlock doors for the next opportunity. I think any person that's grown their career, yourself, anyone that you study, it's really just this kind of series of lessons they've learned and skills they've developed, and they all just kind of build on each other. And so when you're talking about there's so many options, man, it's so many options that people almost, they stay still and they stagnate themselves while they're evaluating their options, quote unquote.
And what you just said right there, from my perspective, I think that's happening across every single generation, because I've spoken to some of my friends who are sitting at retirement age, and they're saying, I don't know what I want to do. I want to do something. I know I don't want to do what I've been doing exactly. I want to try something else, but they don't know what. And there's just like overwhelmed with all these different choices and don't know how to take and identify internally, what really gives them or what has given them the passion, and that how they can actually, thrive in that next, opportunity, wherever it may be. And a lot of times, I don't think that people realize that you kind of have to shuffle sidestep sometimes in order to find that opportunity to go forward. It's kind of like the Frogger game, generating, putting myself in there. But it's, you got to move a little left in order to go forward. And then maybe you have to go back and go a little bit right. But ultimately, you're keeping your eyes forward and you keep trying to go in that direction.
Absolutely. And that was one of the biggest, I think, struggles for me was I got started with this idea. I mean, I'm the child of Asian immigrants, so we're basically brainwashed from the womb to be a doctor. Okay. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer. Those are the options you got. And so I grew up doing that. And actually, even when I was applying for colleges, I was applying as pre-med for the most part. And I remember just thinking, man, this is just not going to get me. While I like the idea of the financial security of being a doctor, or, things like that, I just knew that wasn't really going to be for me. So when we're talking about taking a sidestep, man, I remember that was the biggest thing to let go of. Was for the last handful of years, I've been thinking, well, here's how my life is going to progress. But if that's not leading you down the path that you want, well, you got to take a sidestep a little bit and see, okay, well, what path could this be on, right? And what path could these open up? And so the idea of taking a step to the side and evaluating other options, I think is good, as long as there's still forward movement. A lot of people, they don't really sidestep. They just kind of like side look, but they don't actually do anything about it. Right. And so taking an actual step into another venue or another direction, that's when I, transitioned into the art world and paid my way through school being an actor and direct and produce some short independent films. But then even when I was transitioning into business, I founded a film festival when I was 21, and that kind of opened up the entrepreneur door. And I remember transitioning a little bit more into a business where I was really excited about starting things, and the film festival went off great, but I didn't have a whole lot of traditional business experience. I didn't understand the business world. So I figured, okay, well, and some advice I got, well, why don't you work in the business world for a little bit, get some experience and get some exposure. But I was an actor. I used to make fun of the corporate guys. I would make fun of my roommate that would wake up at 7:00 in the morning, putting on his shoes and, getting on the L with everyone else. I'd make fun of that guy. And then a year later, I am that guy. I just realized, okay, well, if starting something and kind of developing this entrepreneurial business muscle is something that I want, well, then let's take a side step and develop my skills in that arena. But that means that I have to let go of this in order to develop this new path. And it's scary. It's scary.
It is, but I can tell you, having the opportunity to have a couple conversations with you, and we've exchanged some emails. I had an opportunity to preview the book. You're a person of inspiration in a lot of ways. And so that means for me, I know that you're seeking it too. And then you just shared a lot of that and how you go about seeking it. And so we look at quotes to help inspire us. Is there a quote or two that you can share with us that inspires you?
Yeah, I love the quote. It's real simple, but I just love the simple quote, write the future. And it's really something that's in your control. I think everyone thinks the future is something that is out of your control. And it's something that, well, as long as this happens, or maybe if this happens, and if my company's doing well, or maybe if I get this raise, or maybe if this happens, and it just puts you in the passenger seat in your own life. You're constantly waiting for other things to happen so that your life can now begin. You're waiting for other things to develop so then you can finally move forward. And really, you're fully 1,000% in control of how your story plays out. And maybe it's just the film background or the theater background and just seeing stories unfold. That's what you do when you're in that world. You're telling stories. That's what it is. But you see stories develop. And if you're just seeing your own life and your own story and your own career, your own path as a story, well, you're fully in control. And so that means that what you're doing right now is a chapter that sets up the next chapter. And when I really started understanding that and really thinking about my life like it's a story that I'm writing, it took me out of the passenger seat and it put me in the driver's seat of my own life.
That's a great perspective. You and I had the opportunity to talk even a little bit off mic, and you're mentioning something about your presidential aspirations, and even your brother, the Catholic priest, learning multiple language and what his aspiration is. And you shared something with your father, and he had a reply. But I think you need to share with the audience.
Oh yeah, my dad's funny. My dad's the Burmese immigrant, and just super blunt and all these kinds of things. But my brother, who's a Catholic priest, who's a breakdancing Catholic priest, and he was pretty excellent. If you're looking for a good way to entertain yourself for a few minutes, if you search YouTube for probably breakdancing priest or something, we were on Family Feud as a family, me and my brother, my sister, my wife, and all that kind of stuff. And so we were on Family Feud, and my brother is literally dancing circles around Steve Harvey. And he's got the whole priest garb on, the whole deal. But he's developing, he's on his, third, fourth, moving on fifth language now. And I call it his Pope training. Because in my head, he's going to be Pope, and now that's not his goal and his aspiration. He's on God's plan. So am I, quite honestly. But he doesn't have ambitions to be Pope necessarily. But he's learning a bunch of languages. So in my head, that's what you do when you're Pope. You have to be able to speak like 17 languages. And so I'm running for president in 2040. I'd appreciate your vote if you're listening. Obviously, there's a couple more chapters between now and then, but with that, I told my dad, you realize at some point you may have one son that's Pope and one son that's president. Do you understand that, Dad? And my dad just replies, Mark, you are sick. You are mentally unstable. I said, that may be true, Dad. But as Jim was saying, all the great ones are,
It is true. I mean, when you see a lot, we often, especially from a posthumous perspective, we only hear about the greatness of some of these folks. But the fact is if you look at their day and age, they were considered loonies.
They may have been, yeah. There's a lot of people that are just way ahead of the curve. Actually, one of the things we talk about in the book, David, in one of his chapters, he just talks about how many people hated Martin Luther King. It just the percentages while he was alive. I mean, it was 60%, 70% disapproval rate. No one liked the guy. But you look back now, and the guy knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, and I actually heard a perspective on kind kind of what you were talking about with Martin Luther King and those people who were, pushing the norm and what the societal mindset is at the time. And they were referring to about, Colin Kaepernick sitting down during the national anthem during the NFL games. And it opened up my eyes to something that I didn't see, because initially I saw somebody who was totally disrespecting our country. And it really, caused me to step back and say, maybe there's something different here. And I think what you just said about Martin Luther King is a great point. Is it ahead of the curve and, getting labeled as loony, and then everybody else jumping on that bandwagon? Is that keeping us from moving forward? It's not just sidestepping, it's backstepping. Are we backstepping too much when we do those types of things? And so, I really appreciate you sharing that and giving me the opportunity to share that about Colin Kaepernick, because when I first saw it, I was upset. I was really upset and heard that different perspective, and even talking about how there's a verse of the Star Spangled Banner, which we don't sing, which talks about the killing of slaves in D.C. So there's just a lot of things we don't know about because they've kind of been lost in history, that we shouldn't jump to conclusions. So thanks.
Well, and I think the biggest thing that people have to remember about respect or open-mindedness is that that's not limited to one specific point of view, right? Respect is respect. Open-mindedness is open-mindedness. It's so funny. There's a lot of people that constantly are just yelling at other people for not being open-minded, but they're yelling at people for not being open, mainly because they don't agree with them, right? Like, oh, what I believe is open-minded. And if you don't believe that, you're closed-minded. Well, open-mindedness means that you can believe what you believe, absolutely, but that also means that this person has the right to believe what they believe, and you don't have to agree, but you don't have to you don't have to be offensive while you're doing it. You don't have to you don't have to agree, but accepting that they can believe what they believe is important. It's important to the dialogue. While I don't necessarily agree with how Colin Kaepernick has been handling all of it, if I'm going to yell at him about being respectful, well, I should also respect him and the choices that he's making as well. And people turn things really, really personal, really fast. And these ideas of open-mindedness and respect and love, these are ideas that are important to apply no matter whether or not you agree with someone or agree with them wholeheartedly or not. You don't have to agree with them, but accepting them is important. Yeah,
I think that's a great point. Now, I know that, when you start referring to, the sidestepping, the, taking different paths, making a decision when you first, had done, the pre-med and saying, hey, that's not the path, going to the theater. All of these different things, there's humps that we need to get over, and it causes us to, ultimately move forward, if we make that choice, right? And you've done that in a lot of ways. So first of all, you already have my vote. I appreciate that.
I appreciate it.
But can you share a story about a time when you've had to get over the hump and it really helped you move forward faster?
Yeah, sure. There's 17 million, but I remember getting, when I was transitioning into focusing a lot more of my time on business versus the arts. And it was really difficult because, when you're not just exploring something, you're not just doing something for work, it becomes who you are. It becomes part of your identity. It becomes how you introduce yourself and how people know you. And especially with the world of social media and how people know you, people know who you are very quickly. They can search back for years and months and know who you are and who you have been up to this point. And so when I built my young career as an actor and being in the film world. And that was something I was really, really, really excited about doing. And then when I started moving more into the entrepreneur world, it was a little difficult to let that go. And it was more than just, what are you doing for work? It's almost like you feel like you're leaving part of you behind, or you feel like, well, what if I never come back to that, right? You hear all these stories about people that had dreams and then they started doing other things. And then 50 years later, there's just this little flicker of a dream still inside of them, wishing they would have done this, wishing they would have done that. And I just didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to be the person full of regrets of a lot of things that I wish I would have done or wish I would have stuck with. But what gave me a lot of solace, and especially now looking back on it, if you abandon things or you leave things because you don't have a plan, or it's just based on your life circumstances or whatever, that's when you have regret. That you regret things when you leave things, but it's not a real choice. It's not your choice. It's someone else's choice or whatever. And when I started looking at my life, like there's just these chapters. There's this chapter of my life that I'm focused on this. There's a chapter of my life that's called this. There's a chapter of my life I'm learning these skills and developing this part of me. Well, that also doesn't mean that you can't later on in another chapter come back to it. Now that I'm a lot more financially stable, and as some of these, I've got a couple more business goals that I'm trying to accomplish with some of the projects that we're working on. But I'm really excited about getting back into the directing and producing world. But now I'm going to be able to do it with a lot more financial stability, a lot more security, and being able to tell the stories that I want. But, it's a couple of chapters later, right? And so a lot of people, they leave chapters of their life behind or whatnot, but they don't really have a plan in which to get back to it if that's something that's really important to them. And I think it was really helpful to just see my life as, okay, there's chapters, and whatever chapter you're in, like focus and give it everything you got. And you'll learn as much as you can while you're in that chapter. But that's ultimately, there's going to be another chapter. And for me, that gave me a lot of solace when I was transitioning, when I was moving from this to the other thing. It was good to know that my life is constantly developing still.
Well, that's a good perspective to put it on chapters. And so when you start talking about, the things that you're looking at doing, the film industry, becoming a father.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
My wife's a redhead, so I'm hoping for little brown babies with red afros. That's what I'm hoping for.
I'm praying for that for you, my friend. Okay.
Yes.
But when you start looking at all of those future chapters, it goes back to what we were mentioning a moment ago, meaning that options, you've got a ton of options. So if you were to start thinking about one goal, how are you going to chunk this down? What would be one goal in those future chapters?
One goal in those future chapters, well, looking back on it, the chapter I was really focused on a couple chapters ago was the one major thing for me was being financially stable, being financially free to be able to make the choices that I wanted, because I knew that was going to unlock a lot of the other things. Right. And so that's why when I left the acting world and I left the artistic world, I enjoyed doing it, but I didn't really enjoy auditioning for some random, commercial holding some random product. That's not why I was an actor. I was an actor because I enjoyed telling stories that I cared about. And so really I wanted to be financially stable so I could have a lot more control over the things that I did. With this, with the business chapter of my life here, we've been able to meet a lot of great people and accomplish some pretty cool things so far, but we're totally not done. We're completely excited about continuing to develop, a lot of these entrepreneurial muscles so that as we move into the film world, there's just a lot more independence. There's a lot more solvency. You don't have to depend on everyone to do everything for you. So these next couple chapters, obviously fatherhood's really exciting as well. And I'm really excited about that. But financial freedom was really important in these previous chapters. And right now, kind of wrapping up and developing this business savvy, because everything, politics, there's a lot of business that happen. Running the country, if that's the path we end up going on, there's, when you understand how to run it like a business and an effective business and a business that takes care of its people and its constituents and its clients, it's going to work out well for you. So to me, wrapping up this chapter well and continuing to develop that muscle is really important to me.
And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. The number one thing that contributes to customer loyalty is emotions. So move onward and upward faster by gaining significantly deeper insight and understanding of your customer journey and personas with emotional intelligence. With your empathy mapping workshop, you'll learn how to evoke and influence the right customer emotions that generate improved customer loyalty and reduce your cost to operate. Get over your emotional hump now by going to empathymapping.com to learn more. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Mark, the Hump Day Hoedown is a part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Mark, Nathan, are you ready to hoe down?
Let's hoe down.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
Without a doubt, wanting to move on too fast. I think after you start seeing some of the rewards in anything you're doing, you try to move on to the next stage or the next chapter and all of those types of things, but you stop doing the things that got you there. So whatever it is in your industry, if it's just grinding, if it's serving people, whatever the work is to getting things built, wanting to move on past that too fast has been a struggle for sure.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Earn the next level of mentorship. And the key word is earn. Everyone would love to be mentored by, Michael Jordan playing basketball. But even if you got to that level, you wouldn't even know how to take advantage of that time. There's no way you would be able to tap into all of the things he brings to the table. So, just knowing that earning the next level of mentorship, the mentors I've got in my life right now, there's things I can learn. Once I master those things, doors are going to open up, opportunities are going to open up, and I can earn the next level of mentorship.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
Whatever you want, you have to be willing to give it away. And if you want more time in your life, I can't remember what movie it was, but I think maybe it was, Evan Almighty or, whatever, Bruce Almighty. But they talked about, if you want to be a more patient person, well, be ready for someone to show up in your life that will test your patience, right? If whatever you want, you're going to have an opportunity to prove it. And so if whatever you're wanting in life, if it's more money, well, you're going to have an opportunity to invest your money in something, right? If you want more time, you got to be willing to invest your time into people so that they can take things over for you so you can have the time you want. So whatever you want, you got to be willing to give it away. And it also separates you from the love of it too. So when you have it, it doesn't ruin you.
What do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
I think for me, it's this idea of convergence. So if you just think about your eyes, you have two eyes, but they're all it's always focused on the same thing. But just having two eyes focused on the same thing, it just gives you so much more depth. It gives you so much clarity. It gives you, kind of a broader spectrum. And so what I think I've always been good at is the multiple things that are on our plate, whether it's relationships here, this project over here, this project over here, being able to take things I learned from one arena and apply those same principles or apply the intangibles or whatever I learned over here, apply it into the other arenas and apply this over here. And I learned this lesson over here. I learned this in a completely different context, but how can I benefit, how can I benefit this project from other things I've been doing?
Okay, Mark, what would be one book that you'd recommend to our listeners? And it could be from any genre.
There's a book called Bringing Out the Best in People that I think was pretty huge and helpful. I think as an actor, you get very self-focused. And as a leader and someone that's very much an organizer and driver and maximizer, all those types of things, it's very much about I tended to default to being very self-focused. And if I'm working with a group, they tended to be a way that I could accomplish the things I want. But really, if you're gonna lead, it's about bringing out the best in all the people that are around you. And that book was unbelievably helpful.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Mark Nathan. And we'll also put a link to Delusion of Passion, Why Millennials Struggle to Find Success. Okay, Mark, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 19. Normally I say 25, but you're a youngin', so we're going younger. 19. And you have been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you. But you can't take everything back. You can only choose one. What skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you and why?
For me, I would bring back the balancing skill set. So I think everyone's got something they're good at, but then there's something that could be a good balance if they developed. My wife, she's like all heart. So when she developed kind of the pragmatic business sense of her, she became a pretty huge force. When I've got friends that are great team players, but then they have to learn how to develop the ownership and the expertise to really be able to lead. For me, I was always willing to work hard. I have a lot of drive and a lot of big plans, but just the humility and the servitude that you have to go through the grind of just giving and serving and taking care of the people around you. A mantle of leadership is an opportunity to serve more people. Period, case closed. And that's something I learned over 10 years plus. And if I could bring something back with me, it would be that, because for me, that was the balancing skill set that kind of rounded out Mark Nathan.
Mark, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Absolutely. If you want to connect with me, you can find me at marknathan.me, or you can check out the book at thedelusionofpassion.com. And we are available on Amazon and ebook and audiobook and every way possible on the planet. You can find us there, and appreciate your support. Thanks for having me on, Jim.
Mark Nathan, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you, and thanks to you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.